Okay, hi everybody, welcome. This is season 3, episode 7 of our very popular Zoom garden plot. Thank you for coming, for joining us, for submitting your questions and pictures. We have quite a lineup for you tonight. First, we're going to take a look at the Warwick Community Garden and Orchard, and Sarah's going to give us an update there. We're going to take a look at Bill's garden. There are some member photos and some questions. And then as usual, we have some announcements and we'll leave the Q&A for the end.
Okay.
All right, so first up is the Community Garden and Orchard. Sarah, tell us what we're looking at here.
All right, so on the left, I put that picture, and this was our cucumber, where the still is. This was our cucumber patch last year, and the cucumbers have some disease. I don't know if it's a fungus or it's a soil-borne disease from what I can tell. And everything I could read said you just can't plant cucumbers there, and you probably shouldn't plant anything. So we let our dill go to seed. So I'm using dill as a cover crop, which is nice. And then when this, stops, the blooms are done, I'll pull it out, and then I'll try planting something other than cucumbers in there. And on the right-hand side, these are our beets. We're getting close to having beets. So I'm happy about that. Let's see what's next. This is called the shiso, and it's a Japanese or Asian herb. And we acquired it via a bird, I believe. Planted. Last year it appeared, and I like to let things grow and see what happens. It gets dark purple, and it goes up 3 to 4 feet high. It was really beautiful, and I was using it to put in cut flower arrangements. Then I discovered it's actually an herb, and we have a lot of it this year. This is just one little picture. So once I discovered it's an herb, we're going to try making tea. I told people we're not going to just trash most of it into the compost. We'll try making tea with it. But I didn't know if Michael told me he's made tea with it, but I don't know if anyone has ever used this, cooked with it, any other idea of it.
This is my first year growing it, so I was hoping you could tell me more about it since it's your second year.
So did you grow it from seed, or did yours just magically appear?
Grew it from seed. I'm crazy enough to do that.
After I saw it, I had seen this plant at a seminar one time, and I purchased seeds at the Philadelphia Flower Show, and I was never successful in growing it. Then when this appeared, I kept looking at it more and more. I said, I think I tried to grow that from seed. Well, once you have one, if you let it self-seed, you'll never run out. It is invasive as a self-seeder, but it does not have runners, and it's very easy to pull out. You don't have to get nervous. It's not like mint that you fight forever.
Okay, good.
So let it go to seed. You'll have all you want. All your neighbors can have it, and then you can cull it down to how much you really want to have.
How tall
did you taste it?
How tall?
I tasted it. I haven't made the tea yet. I mean, it tastes in between. It's in the mint family.
Okay.
But I said it's not invasive like mint. So they're just babies now. We'll see what happens. And this is our rhubarb patch. We put in this. Well, actually, one of our members had a very large rhubarb patch and gave us, a bunch of rhubarb starts. I think this is year 3, and we've been getting really nice harvests. Rhubarb's a love it or hate it. I don't know, is it a fruit or a vegetable, but it's pretty much love it or leave it. But all the rhubarb lovers, we're in heaven. We're making strawberry rhubarb, everything. And then bit by bit, we are, getting other members to try out rhubarb. But rhubarb season's almost over,
Is it?
On the left, this is our celery. I buy the celery as seedlings from a master gardener. And it's really, I mean, I tried growing it from seed and I said, forget it. So I buy it. I don't know if this fellow's going to grow it anymore because he said it was costing more to grow under lights. But I've had good success with his plants. So I'm happy about that. And then, you know, we're famous for our peas over at the community garden. There they are in all their glory.
They're so beautiful.
Yeah.
Hi, Nicole. They are, aren't they?
Hey, Michelle.
And these, the question comes up each year. This is called a super sugar snap pea. I get them from Johnny's. And yeah, they're what, I don't know. Tall, way taller than me, 7-8 feet high. And they're right now, they're producing really well. As soon as it gets hot, those will be taken out and we will replace those with pole beans.
I wanted to ask you about that.
Yes.
I remember you said that. And in the end, I ended up planting my pole beans because the peas are just producing and producing. I'm like, I need to put the pole beans somewhere else because I'm not going to have time to, you know, finish, you know, harvesting all the peas. Is this late for peas to be producing this much, or is this pretty much on schedule?
No, I put them in I think March, and then I lose track of time, but the weather got, you know, it was nice in March and then it got really cold and weird and whatever, because some things we put in March started, and then some of the greens just petered out and we didn't have the irrigation set up, but the peas eventually took off. Now I did plant pole beans along this back fence over on one side just to get some of them started. But last year, I know the peas usually are taken out about the second week of July. They've about had it. So this particular brand variety has a short production slot. It's very prolific, but they do not produce for a terribly long time. And of course, as the heat ramps up, the production lessens.
Got it.
So last year, we had not planted pole beans before, and I put in pole beans late in July, and they grow like crazy fast. And we had them into September, massive vines. So I would, you know, you can put more in later.
Yeah, it sounds like I might have to do that. Thank you. That's good knowledge to have.
And then the other picture is, I put the orchard in. We've had the orchard for years, I don't know, 11 years or something. It's had its ups and downs over the years, but this year we are on an orchard rejuvenation project. Another garden member has been convinced to become very involved in the orchard. You know how that goes. He's been drawn in. So anyway, the trees are in pretty good shape, but we're trying to learn more about how to actually take care of the trees. This whole thing used to be trees, and now a lot of them have gone by the wayside. So we have pawpaws and stone fruit here mostly. And I sent this file as a too small size, but we put in grapes here, six grape plants. In the back, we've added a bed, which is for sweet potatoes. We've got sweet potatoes in there and winter squash. And there's a whole garden orchard group now that's very gung-ho, and they want to put in blueberries and currants. So we're going to have a whole orchard thing going on. But to do this, it took a lot of energy and resource. We had the fence, but the fence was not, it had been built to keep deer out, not to keep out people and small critters. And we had 2-legged and 4-legged creatures in there last year, just, you know, getting the crops. So it's been all reinforced, wire down at the bottom, chips, the whole deal. We've run irrigation out there. So it's been a big project, but I think it's really going to pay off. And there's a group that's really enthusiastic about the orchard. And then in 1-2 weeks, I have someone from the Master Gardener is going to come over and give a class on orchard, and hopefully we'll, to their students, and hopefully we'll learn some more there. I think that's my pictures. I mean, we all,
Yes, it is. Yeah.
all kinds of things planted, but we won't go through all that.
Oh, that sounds like fun, especially the blueberries and the
Are
currants,
you
right?
Oh, I
Are you
have a
seeing any,
question.
you have a question too when, but you go first.
Oh, I was just curious about the pawpaws because I've wanted to plant them. And I heard you need 2 different types. Is that true? And also, where did you get your pawpaws? Do you know?
Well, this orchard, we actually entered a contest with, I think it was Edie's. There was a,
Well, I remember I dug a hole.
right. So I don't know where they came from, because when
Uh,
the orchard was put in, it was a big event. They came in with the trees. We had a parade, we had people from all over the village, and people adopted trees. But where the trees actually came from, I have no idea, because they supplied all the trees.
right. Do you know if you need 2 different types of pawpaws?
I don't know. There's 3 pawpaw trees there, and I have no idea if they're different types or not. It
Okay.
It was only a couple of years ago they really started producing. That's one reason for all this reinforcement. All of a sudden last year I looked around and there weren't any pawpaws.
Oh, I guess I have another question too.
Yeah.
Last year, my peach tree was so prolific. This year, I don't think I'm going to get any peaches. Have you noticed strange activity with the fruit trees?
Our peach, well, some of our trees have some diseases. I mean, we did some pruning and we're learning more about it, but most of the peach trees are pretty full this year.
Hmm.
I mean, some of them are dropping off, and then I learned they're supposed to drop off because you're not supposed to leave all those little peaches on the tree. You don't get big peaches, but there are a lot of peaches on our trees.
Okay, I have 0 after
Mhm.
like 300 last year.
Huh.
Don't know
Sometimes
why.
they'll do that. If you have a huge crop one year, they won't produce the next year. You'll have, alternate heavy and light crops.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I mean, if it keeps happening, then I would worry, but just for 1 year, it's probably not a big deal.
Okay, should we move on and
Oh
take
yeah,
a look
I
at
do have a
the-
question.
Oh, sorry, Mark.
Are you getting any of the spotted lanternflies down by you?
So far, no.
Okay. Because I know they're coming from Pennsylvania. When I was in Stroudsburg last year, and when I was dropping my daughter off at college, there was tons of them down there. And I know
Really?
they're our way, and I know that one of they love grapes and they love apples and stone fruit. So it's something to watch out for, I think.
No, we will. Interestingly, I don't know if I sent it to this group, but I sent something to this group about my coworker whose daughter has an internship looking for spotted lanternflies. Apparently not. Yeah, cool. She's a student at Cornell, upstate Cornell, studying sustainability and environment. So she has actually a paid internship through the Kingston cooperative, and they are going around the Hudson Valley looking for spotted lanternflies and setting up traps, etc. Which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah, I think they're really worried about that with the
They're
And the
going to
finger-
orchards.
the Finger Lakes
I
too.
mean
They're worried
vineyards.
about-
They're going to
Yeah.
vineyards.
But they'll go, yeah, I mean, their preferred fruit is the Chinese, some Chinese heaven tree or something like that. The crappy tree you see on the side of the road when on interstates. It looks kind of like a sumac.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's their host in China. That's their
Oh,
natural.
okay.
But they're pretty devastating to grapes and also to apples and stone fruit. So if it gets in the Hudson Valley, it could cause a lot of damage because we have so many orchards up
Right.
there
Right.
and wineries. And then if they're worried about the Finger Lakes too, because it could devastate that area too. So
Hmm.
I don't know what they're gonna do because there's nothing you can do to stop them. I mean, it's supposedly a parasitic wasp that they're gonna try. But I don't know how successful that'll be. We'll see.
Wow, this was a bad year for me to put in an orchard at home, vineyards and stone fruit.
Well, I mean, they're coming whether we like it or not. I just, once they get a foothold and they start spreading, but hopefully they'll come up with something in the meantime. Maybe they'll come up with a parasitic wasp. That'll knock the population back.
Hmm.
They're kind of nasty though.
Yeah.
All right, Bill, you want to tell us about your garden?
Yeah, I took some random pictures this time, and I'll start with the one on the right. The thing right in the middle is a row of potatoes, and they're about 3 feet tall now, and they're healthy. We usually don't have them grow quite this tall, but they seem to want to go higher and higher. So the other thing, you can barely see it, but in the greenhouse, there was a volunteer dill plant that came up in the spring. And it is now at the top of the greenhouse. It is 7 feet tall. And I've never seen a dill plant get that big before. So I looked up, and about a couple of years ago, we bought seeds, and the brand was called Mammoth. And I guess it is Mammoth.
It's mammoth.
And so anyway, I'm letting it go to seed. So if anybody wants mammoth seed in a few weeks, let me know. Okay, I was going to mention a few things about cultivation. If you do potatoes, they die back, and then you can dig them up, but you can also let them in the ground for a few weeks if you want, and then dig them up. And you can also mulch them as much as you want as they grow to get more potatoes. So you hill them up with soil, and after that you can throw straw or hay, preferably straw, around them to mulch them some more, and they'll develop some more roots and develop some more potatoes. Okay, on the left, those are butternut squash that you see. There's about 5 or 6 plants there. And I usually, this variety that I like is called Waltham, which is one of the more popular varieties. And I usually get 5 or 6 squash per, butternuts per plant. So from this one thing here, I'll get maybe 30 to 40 butternuts, which I store for the winter.
Nice.
So I eat some in the fall too, but they're better stored. They taste better if you let them sit for a while. And they usually last through the winter until, March, April. They're still good.
How do you store them?
I put them in a cold room in the basement. They like to be kept cool. 45, 50 degrees is probably reasonable for them. So any cool space that you have, they don't have to be moist. In fact, it's better not to have them in a moist area, just a cool area. And they really keep well. I mean, they I've had them as late as April and May, some years, in terms of keeping that long.
Wow.
I've done the same thing, Bill. And yeah, I was wondering if I can extend it even a little longer, because we always seem to be drowning in butternut squash. Do you do anything special to cure them other than just storing them in that cold space?
Well, I pull them off. Well, okay, if you look at the stem, they often will come off of the stem when they're really ready, but you can cut them. And I leave them outside for a few days if there's no frost, but you don't want to let them sit in any kind of deep frost.
Mm.
So that's about it. And I just put them downstairs and they do fine.
Good.
Bill,
Mhm.
what variety was that you're growing?
It's Waltham, Waltham. And every catalog that I've ever seen has Waltham. It's a variety that's very well known. It's a large squash too, so you get big ones. Now,
No, we've never had the room to grow winter squash before, so this new area is very exciting. I forget, I bought the medium size, but I want to know, because if these produce, a lot per plant, that's great. I'll plant them next year. Thank you.
Right, and the thing is, they don't stay where they are. To the right, there's a pea bed that the peas have been harvested already, and to the left, there's some lettuce that's going to be harvested soon. The butternuts will spread into both of those areas.
Yes, I
So
know.
I give them essentially 3 bed width. And even then, they want to go beyond that. So, but that's the minimum that I give them in terms of spreading.
Thank you.
The only pest I have with them, I just mentioned, is the squash bug. And,
Yes.
I just pick them off and I destroy the little egg cases underneath the leaves. And that's pretty much everything that I do with them. Okay, these are melons, and I just tied them up the other day. I put them under fabric early on just to keep the cucumber beetles off and to make sure they're healthy. And then when they get big enough, and they got too big this year, I'll take the netting off and then just tie them to a fence. And there's about 8 plants here. And what I need to do is see a lot of blossoms. As they form, each plant, I will prune off the ends and the flowers so that there's about 4 or 5 melons per plant, not more than that, because they just keep going, but it takes away from the production of the other melons if you let them all just proliferate. So, and they're doing about average for this year, I would say. The varieties that I really like really well is Hale's Best and also Hannah's Choice. And I find that they produce well for me every year. So you can get maybe 3 or 4 melons per plant if you're lucky. At least that's what I get. Okay, these are broccoli, and you see one there, but I actually have about 7 or 8 of them in the same state. They're all about the same stage. And the ones that I use a lot is called Amadeus and Gypsy are the actually 2 that I like. And they will form a nice big head. And this is not quite ready yet. It's going to get a little bigger, maybe twice that size. And then you harvest it, but it produces side shoots. So if you protect the plant from the white moths and other moths and stuff like that, you can get broccoli shoots all summer from them. So, but you have to get the right varieties. Not all broccoli are meant to have side shoots. Some of them just have a head, you cut it, that's it, the plant's done. But a lot of varieties do produce a lot of side shoots. Okay, next, and I think this is the last one. This is just some cucumbers that I put in. There's actually only 2 plants there, and they have small cucumbers on them. I find that I have to plant the cucumbers a couple of times each summer because the cucumber beetles come in and give them a disease, and then they sort of die. And they don't produce any more cucumbers. So I usually start a second batch and sometimes even a third batch to put out, put them under fabric to keep the beetles off till they get big and healthy. And then when they start producing flowers, I just open them up, and then it's a free for all in terms of how many cucumbers do I get before they die, right? So, so anyway,
That's it, yeah.
I think.
Bill, when do you take that cover off? You said when they're big and healthy. How big?
Well, it depends. When they start to produce flowers, they need to be pollinated.
That's just
So,
true.
so that's the time when you take it off. But sometimes they can get to be 2 feet before they produce a lot of flowers, and in which case they're, they're pretty healthy. If I started them from scratch and in the ground, the cucumber beetles would be on them pretty quickly, and they don't seem to survive that well. when they're really little.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Christy, I don't know. Yeah, Michael is here. So Michael, I know you had a question.
I'm here. This isn't a question, it's an observation. I just want to explain what happened and what went wrong and just be warn people about this. It's actually not such a terrible situation to be in. And you know, I joined late and I'm going to jump off just after I explain this because I've got another thing need to be tending to this evening. So we have these sunchokes in Shea Stadium. You can see in the background there, we have on the left, we have the ground mount solar panels. That's outside our deer fence. But before we put those up, we actually had a pavilion built with a first set of solar panels. And when they built the pavilion, they had to like level the ground. And so they took all the extra soil and they piled it right here, sort of in the back, just inside the deer fence. And, you know, I kept trying to do things to help that, you know, there's stone in that soil and it was gray and stuff. It wasn't very great soil. And so I would mulch it and do different things. And the idea was, you know, next year there'd be like really good soil there, or then the soil would get better over time. And so isn't the motto of the Mets, there's always next year. And so we named that mound of soil Shea Stadium. And so one of the things I used to do to help promote the fertility of that soil was bury our compost there. And maybe once or twice I buried some scraps from some sunchokes. And so this is two different views of the same hill. Those sunchokes, I mean, this is over the course of 5 years. They keep coming back and they've wiped out all the weeds on 2/3 of Shea Stadium. It's just incredible. I think last year they had maybe half of, maybe 1/3 of Shea Stadium covered. And they just keep spreading. And you can see on the picture on the left, well, you can't really see it well, but anyway, I've got some wood chips there. But to the left of that, I'd actually tried to sift some of the soil, and the sunchokes kept growing in that. Apparently, my sifter was too coarse, and so tiny parts of sunchokes were there. So there's a couple lessons here. First, don't let your sunchokes get out of hand. You know, if you grow them, don't let them get out of hand. Secondly, if you want some sunchokes this autumn, feel free to stop by. We have extras. I guess those are the two lessons from these pictures.
Michael, you're fantastic.
Well, thank you,
Michael,
Nicole.
what do you do with them?
You can dig up the underneath the ground is, you know, it's a little root. And if you don't dig it all up, another one will grow back next year, as we've learned. So those called Jerusalem artichokes or sunchokes, we like to stir fry them or to pickle them. They make a pretty nice pickle.
Do you have any luck just storing them?
You know, ours don't store that well. I know Bill grows a few. His patch isn't as big as mine because he was smart and planned ahead on that.
They double every 5 years, and in 5 more years, no, they'll double every year. So in 5 more years, your garden is gone. I mean, your yard is gone. So you got to fight them.
Right. So I wonder if this is considered a native plant, and if like the pollinator pathway people should be encouraging people to. I actually started some way in the back of the yard. So you see where the solar panels are. It's like 30 yards beyond that. I don't know what I was thinking. And I thought, oh, you know, it'll give them some time before they overtake the house if I plant them so far away. But it turned out that was a really low part of the property. And even though I protected them from deer, they actually died out there. And the one thing they don't like about this hill is that you can't see that, but really it is a mound of dirt. It's maybe 3 or 4 feet high in the middle there. And because of that, and you know, I don't spend a lot of time watering this. When it gets dry outside, they suffer a little bit because, you know, when it rains, the water sort of drains off.
You know, Michael, the fellow that I got these sunchokes from this spring, who put a thing on Facebook that come and get him. He had bushels. Apparently he left his in the ground all winter because he was digging them up in the spring. So I guess they overwintered in the ground.
So that's what I heard from Bill. So
That's what I do. And if you put them in the refrigerator in a bag, they'll last maybe 3 weeks. But in the ground in the winter, they'll go through the winter. So you have to mulch on top so that the ground doesn't freeze, so you can dig
Right.
it over the winter.
and
One thing
I have done is take them down to Conscious Fork, and I've sold them to them, and they give me a store credit. So I probably will do that this year. I will, get out there with a big pitchfork and spend a line, and maybe even, sift some of the soil and, try to get some of the soil out of there. Folks, I think I really appreciate everyone who participates in the Zoom garden plot, makes it a better plot. So I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, and I wish I could be here more. And also I'm going to miss next month, but I hope to see you all in August.
Okay.
Thank
great
you for
summer,
stopping
Michael.
by.
Bye-bye. See you
Take
in
care,
August.
everyone.
Take care, Michael.
Bye-bye.
Christy, it's 8:34. Shall we have our shami
Yes, we can do that.
before we go to yours?
Yeah.
Bill, just quickly before Christy comes back and takes us to the next slide, how thickly do you mulch your sunchokes in order to be able to dig through the winter?
If you do, I don't know, 6 inches of straw or a foot of straw, should probably be fine.
Okay, good.
You don't
thank
need
you.
too much. It doesn't have to be a huge mound.
Okay, good. Thank
And
you.
also you can make sunchoke chips too. You can put oil on them, cut them in slices and put them in the oven.
Oh, that sounds good.
So that's another way. There's lots of, I think you can do probably 100 different things with them. But you do get, you don't want to do that.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be inundated with squashes and sunchokes this fall.
Bill, how big are they? I've never seen a sunchoke.
There's different sizes, but they go from maybe 2 inches up to maybe 4 inches.
Okay.
And they're odd shaped. They're not, some of them are round, but a lot of them are just odd shaped. So when you trim them to get the skin off, you lose a lot because it's just hard to do
Right.
it nicely,
Right.
But again, in the fall, they're usually ready after the frost. So sometime in October, November is when you can take a whole bunch and put them in your refrigerator and use them. But then you can dig them up over the winter. And then before it gets warm in the spring, you can take whatever remaining and put them in the refrigerator and save them for another month.
Hmm.
So
Oh, that's a great idea.
you get them over a good part of the year.
Right. Okay, interesting. All right, so let's go
You have
back.
to- And you have to, I just mentioned, I put my little clippings and stuff from them in a metal garbage can, okay? So they don't escape. I didn't do what Michael did.
All right. Okay, so I'll just show mine, and I know this is laughable compared to what you all do, but I do container gardening at my place because I have a very small property, And I've started doing a bigger garden at my grandson's house. So it's been hit or miss, but it's been a great fun education for all of us. And I'm learning a lot from all of you. So thank you. But I just wanted to show you on the left this was just on Friday, and I only have 2 pumpkin plants in that planter. And then 2 days later, I could have stood there and watched it grow. I couldn't believe how quickly the vines are, it's just huge. Anyway, and the tomatoes too, it just boom. So anyway, I was pretty thrilled.
That's awesome. What do you have next to the strawberries there, Christy?
Oh, I'm not sure which one.
That-
Oh, that's
that
just,
little one.
I think it's some kind of mums or something. It's nothing special. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, you'll
Just
get
flowers.
some pollinators.
Yeah. Okay, so,
Do you have plans? I'm sorry. Do you have plans on trellising up on the railing for the pumpkins?
I hadn't thought about that. I just put some seeds in and said, let's see what happens. So I'm learning. Should I?
Yeah, you could,
Yes.
depending on how big the variety is and if they
Mhm.
need the ground for support. You
Okay,
can tell us things if you tie up that vine, I'd say close to like 10 pounds or so.
okay,
So if if you're getting that much growth and you're seeing that expansion, you can totally start to do that. Don't tie too tight around the actual stem. If you
okay,
can get it towards the top of the deck to lean on, that'd probably be better.
okay. I was kind of, I had done acorn squash last year, and it just kind of trailed along the deck. The deck is pretty big and I don't mind giving over part of it. So that worked okay last year, but that's actually a really good idea. I think I'll do that. Thank you.
Yeah, lovely.
All right.
Okay,
We are moving to once a month, folks, starting July 11th, still at 8, and it'll stay that way through the month of October. And then some other announcements are the pollinator pathway. If you're not familiar with it, please visit Sustainable Warwick. It's a very exciting initiative to support our pollinators by planting native plants. There's a very vibrant and active group that also meet via Zoom. If you're interested in planting natives and participating in a pollinator pathway, either in the group or just to get your property on the map, that is a way to do it, is to sign up online. You don't have to add your address for people to see it, to make it visible, but you can let them know your general location. And that way we can eventually see that the pollinators have a path where they can get food throughout the season, which is a pretty exciting and wonderful thing to do. And lastly, the Wisner Library is at 6 p.m. on June 30th going to present a regenerative farming presentation by All 1 Old Farm in Goshen. They will talk about improving soil conditions, again, making homes for native species, which is so important, producing delicious food, and how you can translate some of those methods to your own property. So you can register at the library or you can call.
okay.
And this is something from Chad. There are some other exciting things happening over the other side of the mountain in Greenwood Lake. On Thursday the 7th, and I'm referring to the pamphlet on the right, they are hosting a talk about sustainable design in your gardens, the best plans for the site, best practices, how not to use insecticides, just a healthier garden for you and for everything and everyone. Jane Barba is the local horticulturalist who's there going to be talking about pollinators, trees and ground covers, perennials and shrubs. Advanced registration is recommended for both of these, actually. Greenwood Lake Library patrons do get priority enrollment, but I've attended their talks. They really are very enlightening and interesting. And the second one there is the amphibian migrations on Thursday, the 21st. And another Greenwood Lake resident is going to host that, photographer and journalist Joanna Lentini. She's been published in the April-May 2022 Smithsonian Magazine. She's going to delve into some images behind this local story about why did the salamander cross the road, highlighting, the significance of unprotected wetlands, etc. So again, advanced registration is required. Telephone number at the bottom. And you can also email them to register. Again, Greenwood Lake patrons get priority registration.
Mm.
Okay, Gail, this is your question. Go ahead.
Okay, I apologize if my questions have been answered many times when I haven't been in attendance, but I asked Mary about Mary Mikowski, what strawberries to order, and she told me. And last year I planted 24 and I knew I wasn't going to get any strawberries and I picked off the flowers. But this year, I haven't gotten nearly as many as I was hoping. And I did research and all I did was get confused whether I should be fertilizing strawberries during the growing season, not fertilizing, and if fertilizing, which fertilizer I should use. And the one thing I did read was that I should cut off the runners, which I haven't done, but I will do. So that's my question. How do I get more strawberries?
I think they're overcrowded. I think that might be one of the reasons that you're not getting as many, because they look it looks like there's a lot of foliage. Usually, you keep the plants, I don't know if it's 6 feet or a foot apart. So that might be one of the reasons. They might have put all their energy into runners instead of producing flowers and fruit.
When would I be able to thin them out? Or can I thin them out, or do I just get rid of some?
You can thin them out. I mean, I would tend to do it in the fall or the spring in the cooler weather, because you don't want to disturb plants that much in the heat of the summer. So in the fall you could maybe replant it and separate them out and give them each a little bit of space, and then either reduce the amount of runners that you let keep growing, or don't let any runners grow at all. But it looks to me like it's just this overcrowd, like there's too much foliage. The plant put all its energy into runners and foliage, so that's why you probably have reduced. I fertilize would help, but I think that's the bigger problem is that.
And you would fertilize this
Well,
time
I think
of year?
fertilizer would probably have helped, but I think the bigger problem is that it's overcrowded.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. I'm growing them for the first time. Well, not the first time. I'm growing them this year. I got some volunteers last year, and I gave them their own space this year, and I'm going to expand on it next year. So I'll be in the same boat you're in, so we can work together and share our misery, or triumph, depending on whether we get some or we don't.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Hey,
I think that the plants should be at least a foot apart, maybe even more, a little bit more
Yeah,
than
I was
that,
thinking
so that they're
6
not
inches.
overcrowded. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if I planted, I have 2 fences. One keeps the deer and the groundhogs and the bunnies out, and I have another fence that keeps the deer out, but not the bunnies and the groundhogs. Animals would eat my strawberries if I don't have them in the well-protected fence, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
most likely.
Mm.
Even chipmunks will eat them if they get into through the fence. We have problems with we have people who have issues with the chipmunks getting in and eating their strawberries. So a lot of people put a cover over it, like a cloth cover over it, and they nail it down, or they tie it down tight so that it helps prevent the little critters from getting in there.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I probably put them up closer to 9 inches apart. I just didn't have so much room. I've never had luck growing eggplants. The plants seem to be doing well, but the leaves are turning yellow. Is that a nutrient deficiency? Or do I just cut off the yellow leaves?
it could be mites, it could be nutrient deficiency. I mean, the leaves are curled up, so that it could be disease. It's hard to tell without really getting in there and taking a look at it. I mean, if you maybe give it a little fertilizer, see if it and not too much though, just a little fertilizer, and see if the leaves green up, then it's like a nitrogen deficiency. If you give it a balanced fertilizer, but that to me looks like something else because the leaves are kind of curled, almost like it's like a thrip or some sucking insect that's causing the leaves to curl up. But I've never had luck with them either. I think the most I'll grow an eggplant, I'll get one eggplant out of the whole thing. I've given up on them.
Wait, so you would leave these leaves and maybe I give a little.
Well, if it's a nutrient deficiency and you give it a shot of fertilizer, it'll take care of those leaves. They'll green up.
Okay.
If it's not a nutrient deficiency and it doesn't change, then it's either an insect problem or disease. So you kind of, it could be one of three. So if you give it some fertilizer, now you're down to two problems. Is it an insect problem or is it a disease? But take a look at the leaves. If it's a mite problem, you rub the underside, you'll see almost like a white webbish material coming off on your fingers, and that indicates that you have mites. And that's usually mites like dry conditions too. So, if you can see aphids, you can see little thrips or little leaf hoppers. But to me, it looks like something sucking on the leaf, and it's causing it to curl up and brown.
And if the leaves do have mites, I cut them off, but keep them out of the compost bin, or can I throw it in?
Oh, I wouldn't worry about that because mites are kind of ubiquitous. Whether you throw them in or not, it's not going to really cause much difference. But I mean, you could cut them off. It depends. I mean, either cut them off or just spray them with some soap. Get some safer soap and give it some spray. That'll take care of them. You don't want to cut too much of the leaves off. I mean, if you can save the leaf, safer soap will do it. It'll wet them down and it'll kind of destroy them, so they won't. But you got to do repeated. Usually, you got to do repeated shots of that. So, and then check the healthy leaves too, because they could be on the healthy leaves if it's an insect and it just hasn't shown any symptoms yet. So you could have it on the green leaves as well if it's an insect issue.
Oh, thank you. All of you guys are so knowledgeable. I'm so impressed.
Gail, you have some, if you go back to that picture, it looks like you have some purslane growing underneath.
I have masses of purslane.
Yeah, so I don't know. I thought purslane grows in some pretty sandy, nutrient poor soil. So Mark may be onto something when he said you might want to give it a shot of fertilizer.
I would be surprised that my soil, I mean, I put my compost in, I've been building it up over years, but I do have a lot of purslane. And I mean, maybe I did when I planted everything, add fertilizer. But
well, if that eggplant is a wash, the purslane is delicious, right?
and healthy.
You got a couple good flowers there. You might get something out. You might get a couple out of it. You got at least 2 flowers, and it looks like you have more coming.
Yeah, well, and
it's the season. The season's we've got a long time left. We still got two months at least.
Well, just to have an aside, my son lives in Barcelona and he's coming with his partner and my grandson, and they're all vegetarians. And if I have a really good garden, they say they'll come and visit more often because it's so great just to eat out of your garden. So the pressure is on me. I want my grandson to visit often, and I have to have this good garden. Anyway, thanks. Hopefully love is enough, and I can always get. I actually have been traveling, as some of you know. I've been to Europe 3 times during COVID, and I'm in the city all the time riding the subway. But I got COVID when I went out to Pennsylvania to the Mennonites to get these grafted brandywine tomatoes that they grow. And in the middle of Pennsylvania, that's where I got the COVID. And so I have high expectation for these tomatoes, and I've grown tomatoes in the past and seen this happen, but what, is there anything I can do when the leaves start going like that?
I would pick them off and throw them in your garbage. Don't compost them. It's one of the leaf diseases. It's like Septoria or Fusarium or Anthracnose. It's hard to, or one of the blights. But I would get rid of it
them.
as quick as possible and throw it into a bag and throw the bag in the garbage. Do not compost that. So you'll spread it. Unfortunately, once it starts, it's really hard to stop. And it'll eventually, the plant will probably die before it'll kill it, but it'll get real raggedy looking. And it usually doesn't take much. You'll still produce tomatoes, they'll still be nice and everything. But usually this happens to everyone's tomatoes in our garden. And by the end of the season, end of August, they look real raggedy and they're all brown, and the plants look just like like hell, and then they throw them away. So this is real common, and once you get this, I've tried spraying it with like a copper, organic copper pesticide or fungicide, and it really, you slow it down, but you really can't stop it totally. It's really difficult to stop once it gets started. So I guess the short end of just pick off any leaf that has any of those spots on it, those brown spots, and throw them in the garbage, not in the compost. That would be my advice.
Okay, thank you so much.
Is this running from the bottom up? In other words, are the leaves at the top healthy, but the leaves at the bottom look like this?
It's totally from the bottom up. The leaves
Yeah,
at the
okay.
top are healthy.
You just have to pick them off faster than it moves up.
Yeah.
That's the solution.
And also when you water, don't use a soaker. Don't water the plant. Don't water the leaves. Put the soaker right up at the bottom of the plant. Try not to water any of the leaves, and try to do it. Don't do it late at night. Don't let the plant get wet at night. It helps to spread the disease. Wet moisture and keeping the plant moist. So if you water in the afternoon, the plant gets to dry out, but avoid wetting the leaves because it'll spread it really a lot quicker. Use a soaker if you can. And also if you can mulch, because it looks like there's a lack of mulch down there. You can get any kind of mulch there, because what happens is the spores are in the ground. They're in every soil in this area. They're just all over the place. So the raindrop will hit it, it'll splash a minute piece of dirt up onto the leaf with a spore in it. The spore under the wet conditions will germinate and take over, and once it gets there, this is what happens. So if you have a mulch layer there, it'll hit the grass, the rain will hit the mulch, and it'll either just dissipate, or if it splashes up, it's not soil coming up with it, with the spores.
Okay, tomorrow I mulch and cut off those bad leaves.
Yeah.
What you should do is probably mulch as soon as you put the plant out, so that that's the time to mulch.
Yeah.
Prevent that initial soil from splashing up on it.
Yeah, I do mine when I transplant. I put chopped straw underneath it or some kind of mulch. I don't let any bare soil go near the plant. I still get it. It doesn't. I still get it somehow, but sometimes I get it. Maybe 3 or 4 weeks later than everyone else. Sometimes I get it at the same time, but I'm just trying to slow it down too, because it's gonna eventually, you're gonna get it. Whether it's almost inevitable, you're gonna get it.
Okay, thank you so much.
So you're not doing anything wrong. It's just the way it is. I mean, it's the way tomatoes grow.
Well, I can do it better. I think I can do it better.
Yeah, the other thing I found is some tomatoes are much more vulnerable to that than others. So if you have different varieties of tomatoes, some will do a lot better and not get that it's bad, and some will just the whole plant will go.
Yeah,
So
you're
try to have several different varieties. And I also try to not put my plants close to each other, separate them, because they will transfer it from one to the other.
Yeah, I give my plants about 3 feet each way. I have a 20 by 20 plot and I have 16 plants in there. I give them a lot of room to try to avoid that. Bill's right. The closer they are, they're just gonna, if one gets it and they were really tight, it's just gonna spread right down the line. They're all gonna get it. If you have some space, at least, a gap, you might prevent it from jumping. And he's right too, the varieties. Some varieties are just gonna, the plants are just gonna go up like crazy and others are gonna resist as long as possible. So,
I plant mine. I know they're too close, but I plant them in batches. So, because I plant a lot of tomatoes, we have like 25, 30 members and tomatoes are really popular. So we've got, they're like 16-foot beds. So I'll put in like one 8-foot section, then another 8-foot. So I've got 4 different sections I planted so far, and I space them a week or 2 apart. And that way, if one bed starts getting, really wiped out, plus it extends the harvest. We're not getting frost until the end of September now. So I've, got tomatoes coming on really good all through August and early September. So I find, doing that type of space planting can also help. I do that with squash, cucumbers, all that, because eventually some bug's going to get it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions? Something you want to share with us?
Michelle, I just want to say one thing. Remember I showed you the the bachelor buttons last week?
Yes.
When I went in the last meeting, I went to I was in the garden a lot on Sunday, and they're starting to flower, and I was going through them and I was kind of with my hand over, like not with my, like kind of just brushing them with my hand, I guess, brushing them gently with my hand to look for some bindweed. And it was late in the day and there must have been thousands of hoverflies in there.
Oh,
I mean, it was just these, and I looked at them, they look like these little mini bees, and they were all over the flowers and all over the plants. And it was kind of cool seeing there's thousands of them. I mean, I pushed it and just huge numbers would come flying out and buzz around and land back and do what they were going to do. It was kind of neat. So I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks, I'm not going to, well, hopefully I can get a picture and show you guys, but there's going to be a lot of flowers there for the pollinators. So, and
Awesome.
yeah, I think if it's successful, I'm going to do it again next year. Maybe with a different variety or something. But anyway, just figured I'd let you know.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, I remembered, guys, what I was trying to say earlier about the bamboo lookalike. It's Japanese knotweed. It's very invasive. Very invasive.
Yeah, that's not good.
Everything.
It's not a good plant.
It's not. So we have 2 stands of it and it sends out shoots and runners, but that is the one to eat it when it's yay high. You can cut those shoots and you can peel back the outer covering and you can eat your invasives that way. But I just to carry on with Mark's thought about the pollinators. I have found that the pollinators love it when that shrub is in bloom. They go crazy for it. So part of me feels terrible about pulling it out and eating it down to the ground.
Mark, I didn't show a picture, but I don't know, several years, I like bachelor buttons and we planted them several years ago, but I let them self-seed. I have a massive bachelor button thing going on. I mean, it's about 8 feet long and bachelor buttons are usually short. Mine are about 3 feet high. Let them self-seed every year, and then I might pull them out this year because it's really out of control, but it's beautiful. I'll get a picture for another time, but let them self-seed.
Is that
I'm gonna.
They'll come up.
Is that a particular variety of the bachelor buttons? I thought they were usually about 6 inches tall, 6 inches.
No, they're tall. The ones I'm growing are about 2.5, 3 feet. They're pretty good size. The variety, I get the tall variety. I get the tall blue ones and the tall white ones.
Right.
But I think they do come shorter.
these were like cheap dollar seeds, and they were probably short to begin with, but now I have like monster bachelor buttons. They're beautiful.
So they're annuals and they self-seed, right?
They
Very
do.
easily. You just
Yes.
don't cut them, just leave them there and let the seeds fall. You turn the ground over in the winter, and early in the spring, they all come up.
Awesome.
Cosmos, Cleome, Calendula, and bachelor buttons. I haven't purchased seeds or plant for years. And then there's so many, I give the gardeners, we give them away. People take them to put them in their own gardens because they're all over the place. Oh, and sunflowers. I self-seed sunflowers.
And dill self-seeds. all
Oh,
over
dill.
the
You
place.
saw that thing of dill I have.
It's like, I can't get rid of that stuff.
Yeah, self-seeding is a wonderful thing.
Mhm, mhm.
Great plans. All right, everybody.
All right.
It is 9:04. If nobody else has any questions or anything they want to share, I want to thank you for showing up tonight and joining us in our discussion. And we'll be back 4 weeks or a month from now, July 11th at 8 p.m. Please send us your photographs. We still look forward to seeing everything.
I'll be on vacation. I'll miss the next one, but I look forward to when I get back from my vacation.
All
So-
right.
All
Have a
right.
wonderful
Bye-bye.
weekend.
Have a good night,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Happy gardening.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.